Welcome to DaveRig Design. I'm Dave. A friend of mine picked up a new tabletop game and asked if I could print some miniatures for it. That seemed like a good opportunity to walk through what resin printing actually involves from start to finish for anybody who is thinking of adding it to their setup. Resin printers promise insane detail, but they also introduce cleanup, chemicals, washing and curing, a lot more friction than FDM printing, and that friction is usually what scares people off. So instead of treating this like a step-by-step tutorial, I want to walk through the resin printing workflow so you can see the effort involved and decide if the juice is worth the squeeze for your project. By the end, you should have a clear sense of whether you should add resin printing to the kind of projects you already do. Before cracking open your first bottle of resin, we need to talk about personal protective equipment, or PPE. It's been my experience that people online can be a bit extreme when talking about resin safety. A lot just comes down to common sense, and I'll probably use that term a lot in this section. Resin is toxic when it's in its liquid form, so you need to handle it with care. It's also sticky and messy, so you should treat it with the same respect you do other household chemicals. That said, it's not acid. It's not going to melt your hand if you get a little drop on your skin. But people can develop a sensitivity to resin over time, so it's best to limit your skin contact as much as possible. An easy way to do that is by wearing nitrile gloves while handling prints. You can find them in most hardware or grocery stores and they aren't expensive. When you need to wear gloves comes down to common sense and your comfort level. If you're handling large prints straight out of the printer, you absolutely need to wear gloves. But if you're working with small prints like miniatures and you're using tools to move the prints around, you may be able to get away without wearing them. But again, it's your call. Resin can also give off odors, and some brands are stronger than others. This depends both on the resin and how sensitive you are to the smells. Just like when working with paints or other solvents, you want to be in a reasonably sized room with some ventilation. You could also use an air purifier with a charcoal filter, or wear a charcoal filtered mask. You don't want to be standing in a closet with your printer, but a normal sized room with some airflow is usually fine. Unlike FDM printing, resin printing requires a few additional tools and consumables besides the resin itself. First are paper towels. You're dealing with liquids, so you're going to go through a lot of them, either cleaning up spills, drying prints, or wiping off tools. Next, I'd consider a silicone mat a must-have. You can find them in various sizes online. Resin doesn't stick to silicone, so it makes cleanup way easier, either by wiping up spills or curing the resin and then just peeling it off. Most printers come with both a metal and plastic scraper. The metal scraper is used for removing prints from your build plate once the print's complete. You carefully work the edge of the scraper under the print, and then usually it'll just pop right off. The plastic scraper is used on the resin vat, either for stirring resin, scraping resin back into the bottle when you're done, or removing failed prints that are stuck to the bottom of the vat. You never want to use the metal scraper in the vat. You'll puncture the plastic film at the bottom, and then you'll have a very bad day. When a print comes out of the vat, it'll be coated in resin and needs to be washed. The most common way of doing this is with isopropyl alcohol, and a lot of it. A typical wash station will hold 4 or 5 liters of alcohol, and it needs to be replaced occasionally. You'll also use the alcohol to clean tools or clean up any spills. There are other alternatives like dedicated resin detergents, or you can use a water washable resin where you can just use plain tap water to wash the prints. I also recommend a handheld UV light, something reasonably strong, around 60 watts or so. This is useful for curing resin on parts that are too big to fit in your curing station, or curing spills on your silicone mat so you can peel them off, or curing resin-soaked paper towels before you dispose of them. Resin produces heat when it cures, and the more resin, the more heat. So if you're curing a paper towel that's soaked in resin, it's common to see it smoke a bit. I've never seen a paper towel catch on fire by doing this, but you want to use some common sense and make sure everything's cooled down before tossing it in a garbage can. You might be thinking to yourself, this seems like a lot of setup if you only need a few prints. And if that's the case, today's sponsor, PCBWay, may be a good option for you. PCBWay offers resin printing along with a wide range of other 3D printing methods. You can upload your file to the website, choose a material, and get an instant quote. Their technicians review the files and will reach out to you if they see any potential issues which help to avoid failed prints. Or maybe you need to work in a material that you can't realistically print at home yourself. For example, I designed this D20 die and printed it in resin, and it looked great. But I wanted it to be a little bit more substantial, so I scaled it up and had PCBWay printed in stainless steel. Then I was able to sand and polish each surface to get a mirror finish. Completely unnecessary and completely worth it. PCBWay also offers CNC machining and injection molding using the same straightforward workflow. So if you need parts for a project that are outside what you can do at home, it's worth checking them out. I'll leave a link in the description. Now let's talk about how the slicer works for resin printing. Just like FDM printing, everything starts in the slicer. There are several slicer options. Many are free with paid upgrades. The free versions are perfectly fine for most use cases, and the paid versions just add advanced tools. I use Lychee Slicer because I like the interface, and it has a library of known good settings for different printers and resins, which is great when you're just starting out. The main slicer settings you'll deal with are burn-in layers and normal exposure time. Burn-in layers are the first few layers and determine how well the print's going to stick to the build plate. Normal layers make up the rest of the print. If your normal exposure time is too short, the resin won't fully cure, which usually shows up as weak supports, missing details, or prints that peel away partway through. If your exposure time is too long, the prints will still succeed, but you'll start to lose detail, edges get soft, fine features can look bloated, and the supports tend to fuse more aggressively to the model. A great way to dial in your exposure settings is by using the Cones of Calibration file from Table Flip Foundry. It's a fun little model with multiple testing attributes all combined in one print. Their site explains in detail, but the short version is you print this test model and adjust exposure until all the features print properly. I'll leave a link in the description to their site where you can find it. In addition to tools like that, I'm also working on a digital guide that pulls together how I think through trade-offs and workflows across my projects. It's still early days, but if that sounds useful, there's a waitlist link in the description to get updates and early access when it's released. Supports are another big part of resin printing. Most slicers have auto support features which are good enough to get you started, and a common workflow is to use the auto-generated supports and then manually tweak them as needed. When downloading models, you can often find supported versions, which means the creator has already done all the support work for you, which is a great option if you're just starting out so you don't need to worry about supports at all. Let's go over the basics of how the mechanics of resin printing actually works. We know resin hardens when exposed to UV light, and that's what the printer's doing each layer. The slicer is breaking up your model into a series of images, one per layer, and each image is projected to the bottom of the vat to cure the resin wherever the light hits it. Because of this, the print times depend on the total height of the print, not how many objects are on the build plate. One model or 20 models will take the same amount of time to print, as long as they're all the same height. So whenever printing, you want to try to batch as much as possible and cram as many things onto the build plate as once to optimize your print times. Once your print finishes, that's usually when the mess begins. Because the resin is thick and syrupy, it tends to not drip off the build plate or the print when hanging flat, so you want to get it on an angle to cause it to slide off to a point and then drip down. Companies are starting to build this feature into the machines themselves, so they'll have a way of hanging the build plate on an angle or sticking on the side of the vat to let the excess resin drip off. But for machines that don't have that feature, usually online you can find people that have modeled little brackets or adapters that you can stick on the machine and hold the build plate at an angle and let it drip for a while. When I'm ready to remove the prints, I'll put a piece of paper towel on my silicone mat and then take the build plate out and lay it on its side on the paper towel. This way it'll soak up any other resin that's still dripping off and not just pool on the mat. To get the prints off the build plate, you just want to hold your metal scraper flat up against the build plate and try to work it under the edge of the print. You want to keep it parallel to the build plate so you don't gouge the metal, and usually this is the hardest part. Once you manage to start getting under the print, it pops off pretty easy. Now at this point, some people remove the supports first before washing, but I don't do this because that just makes a bigger mess than is needed, so I just put the whole thing right into the wash station. Also, having the supports on the print kind of protect it while it's being washed and bounced around. I'll usually run prints in the wash station for about 10 minutes or so, and that seems to do a good job. Then I just let them drip dry. Something to mention here is that you're dealing with a container of several liters of flammable liquid, so you want to make sure it's stable, it's not going to get knocked over, and there's no open flames around it. A trick I've found to easily remove supports is to heat them up first. If I'm working with small prints like miniatures, I'll just take a bowl and fill it with hot water from the tap, and then drop them in for 30 seconds or so to let them warm up. Then after that, the supports generally just fall off with very low resistance. Now that the prints are washed and have all their supports removed, they might look solid and complete, but they're not. The prints are still only partially cured. During the printing process, each layer is just exposed long enough to hold its shape together, but the resin still hasn't fully hardened. This is why they go into a UV curing chamber to finish the process. I'll usually put them in the chamber for about 10 or 15 minutes, and this fully hardens the resin, increasing its strength and also getting rid of the slightly tacky feeling that's left on the prints when they come out of the wash. So after going through the full workflow, here's my summary. Resin printing is absolutely worth it if you need fine detail. If you're printing miniatures or small parts to bigger prints or things that have really fine texture, anything that would be super difficult to do on an FDM printer, that's when you want resin. But that detail comes with overhead. Cleanup, chemicals, dedicated spaces, this is the real cost of resin printing. Because resin printing involves liquids and multiple steps, you're going to need a dedicated space with a good workflow. You can't just throw it in the corner on a coffee table like you can an FDM printer. So if your projects can benefit from this high detail, then resin printing is an incredible tool. But if not, it's probably more friction than it's worth. For myself, I don't do a ton of resin printing because most of my projects don't really require it. I'm usually printing bigger things or functional prints, things that resin isn't really used for. But in those few cases when I need small detailed objects to work onto a bigger print, the resin printer really comes in handy. There's way too much information on resin printing to cover in one video, so I'm sure I left out a lot of stuff. So if there's anything specific that you have questions on, let me know in the comments. I read them all, and if I can, I'll try to answer your questions. Oh, and remember this D20 die? So originally I was planning to fill in all the recessed areas with colored resin. I thought the contrast between the polished steel and the colors would look pretty cool. But now I'm not sure. What do you think? Should I fill them in or just leave it all stainless steel as it is? Let me know in the comments. Start your comment with the word resin so I know you made it this far in the video. And if you found the video helpful, consider hitting that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And if you're interested in supporting the channel, check out my Patreon. I occasionally post some behind the scenes content there, and if you have any other questions, it's a lot easier to discuss there. Thanks for watching. If you're interested in improving how your prints look, I have a full playlist on the left that goes into finishing and post-processing. Or if you're more interested in the technical side of things, CAD, AI, advanced workflows, there's a whole playlist on the right that goes deeper into that.